Thank you so much for being here, all of you. We are 101 people for this last webinar of Agora. Today, we are having these kind of webinars every 2 months because we love to know more about the artists, love to know what they are doing, all their crazy ideas or their experimental research. Today, I'm really happy of having from the side of my team, Laura. Hello, Laura. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Welcome everyone. Thank you for introduction. Thanks for joining. Super exciting. You are so many. It's a lot of people.
That's good. That's good.
Wow.
More people, more fun. Always good. And Pedro, welcome. Do you want to say something in German, Pedro, just to start the
Hi
conversation?
everyone. Hallo, herzlich willkommen.
Big comment, Pedro. We have Pedro for all the languages and problems with different languages. We always send him comments on translations and things. Thank you so much, Pedro, for being here. Also from the
My
side of
pleasure.
our team. We have today three amazing artists, three great presentations. We are going to have Rob. Welcome, Rob.
Hi there, welcome.
Welcome, Rob. Lynn, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Happy to have you here. And also Ralph. How are you, Ralph?
Oh, very good, very good.
Everything's good?
Oh yeah.
First time in these kind of webinars?
Well, I've watched enough of them. I mean,
Yes, you were part of the audience, but now you're an artist showing your work. You come as part of our community. Rob and Lynn, we don't know so much what they do. That's always good. We always mix people from our community, artists. Ralph was part of the festival the last 2 years. And we are going to know more about Rob and Lynn work today. It's going to be a surprise for you and also for us, but for sure it's a great selection for today's conversation. We are going to have 2 hours of fun knowing more about the projects. If you have any questions, just be sure to write them on the chat and just to be sure that put them to who you are asking of if it's a question. In general, we always go fast on timing. That means that we don't have time to debate all your specific questions, but if you write them down and if we have time in the end, that will happen. Pedro from our team will be getting together all the questions and then we will ask directly to the photographers. This is also important not to bother the artists while they are presenting, just to be sure that they can do the all 15-20 minutes presentation and then we can go for the questions. I don't want to get longer. I just want to do a brief introduction about two news that we have in our community. Just waiting for the rest of you to get in. We are 120. Laura, can you please give access to the people that is coming? Because I'm just going to be sharing my screen.
Yeah, sure.
For those of you who don't know, we are Experimental Photo Festival, Agora School of Experimentation. We are the same team, the same community. What we do is we have a school during the full year of experimental photography, the only school that exists in the world. We teach more than 60 techniques and we have a diploma. This diploma is really good because artists, as the ones that you are going to see here, they teach their own technique and then you have this diploma is a year long, or you have also, you can meet our students. We have a library of more than 400 books on experimental photography, and then we have techniques, classes of specialization and different things. This is just an invitation for you to get into our programs. We are starting on April the 8th. That means that now is kind of a good moment to get in. And if you don't know yet, if you want, if you can, or you just want to see how it works, our team has just created these previews of workshops and conferences. That means that now you can just have a 10 minutes presentation of what we are doing and seeing exactly how our content is. In this case, we have a conference from Annette Golas with John Bieber from the festival. And we have a 10 minutes workshop on more than Sage for Ella Morton in the English version. And you can see really how our content work. As I said, it's good because it's not one professor teaching all the techniques, but 60 artists, each of them specialize in their technique, teaching what they know. And this is what we do. During the year, we get together online because we have students, we have 120 students from all over the world. And what we do, all this community get together in Barcelona for Experimental Photo Festival, that we are also now, this week we have just present the full program for the festival. You can register here and you can check the full program. It's a week of experimentation in Barcelona. We are mainly a summer camp on experimental photography. It's the biggest festival in the world regarding workshops. We have 69 this year. That means that if you come that week in Barcelona, you can learn whatever you want. All the techniques are here. As you can see, this is now the program that we have. Performative, cyanotype. Some of them are in Spanish, as this one, but the biggest part of them are in English. Multiple exposure, cámaras obscuras, cyanotype and lumen. Okay, these are all the workshops just of the first day of Wednesday, and on Thursday we have also 11 workshops every day. It's a pretty crazy thing. We hope you can join or this summer or next summer, because it's kind of the great moment to get together with our community and have a lot of fun. Okay, I think this is the basics of advertising from my side. Just keep in your mind that if you want to learn something with us, we're starting on April the 8th. You have 2 more weeks. And if you want to come to Experimental Photo Festival, as soon as you get your ticket, as soon you can choose your workshops. Because as you said, some of them are solding out. That is kind of normal. At this point of the year, workshops start solding out. And if you want to get the best ones, you have to go fast. And also you need to get some time to check on your plane tickets and so. Okay, no more advertising for today. I just want to invite the first invited artist guests of today, amazing artist, scientific Ralph Nevins from Canada. Welcome. Are you ready?
Hiya.
All of you, 140 people are listening. Don't get stressed, okay? No pressure.
I'm going to share my screen. You don't need to see me right away here. And away we go. Okay. Oh, I lost my timer. There we go. Here's my timer. Okay, just a little bit about slit scan at the beginning. And let's click on here. And just a few definitions, a little bit of history, my current works, and what I'm doing now these days. Okay, quick definitions. Slit scan photography, what I'm calling slit scan photography is many titles. Usually people see it as strip photography. If that's the camera's rotating around a scene, you also get the panorama, but also every camera is actually a slit photography camera. It's just your slit is really big for your regular DSLRs and mirrorless and etc. And of course, streak photography, this is what most people have seen before, is the race endings. So you see things stretched out, a little bit elongated, but as long as parallax is correct, you can see who crosses the line first. Rollout and peripheral photography is if you're looking at an object and you want to see all the sides of it as it goes around. Or and that's typically the camera doesn't move, but if the camera does move, you can also get a different kind of streak where it becomes absolutely beautiful art. There's a number of people that actually do this. Things I won't be talking about, since I don't have a satellite, is remote sensing or aircraft photography. And I originally started playing with scanners a zillion years ago, 25 years ago. And this is what got me interested in it. A lot of people do this, and Xerox art comes back from early 70s when Xerox first came out with their photocopiers. Whoop. Of course, slit scan photography is just taking one line digitally, one line at a time. And the quicker you take those lines, it becomes a picture. So essentially single line movies. that are all combined together. My cameras that I've built typically run best images are roughly 140 lines per second. So there's a fair amount of data that you collect and stick it all together. And since just dealing with data, nobody cares. I mean, it just turns into a picture later. And so 24 years ago, this is one of the very first images of a selfie of myself with my very first camera that was made from a scanner. This also 24 years ago, my daughter here raced around behind the camera, so she appears in there twice. But I had to get better because I'm never quite happy with the originals. So I had people on a rotating table and scan them as they rotated. Again, this is back to the peripheral or rollout. So you get the person in 360 or actually 720 plus degrees. But what happens if you put the camera above them? It's always try to take a different view of what you're doing. If the camera's above them and you rotate, you get this smear line going through the center, which turns into really interesting images, like this woman's arm as she's rotating underneath the camera. And okay, this kind of reminded me, this self-similar images, that you could actually do this transformation, the rectangular to polar transformation, how you make little planets. And so you can do that with people, which this when I first did this in 2009, I believe, this just blew me away. So I had to do more. So I got a bunch of models, like probably 25 models in a period of 4 or 5 months, and did all kinds of interesting and strange things. But, doing the same thing over and over again starts getting boring, so you always have to switch it up. This is the same daughter a number of years later, being turned around again on this large Lazy Susan type rotating table. And so what else can you do? Well, if you do the same thing, like the other smears going down, this is my spouse holding daughter again. She's rotating around where my spouse isn't moving, but the daughter is. And the camera is going top to bottom, or bottom to top, doesn't matter. And so you get people dressed up and acting funny. But all these cameras had issues, is that they were all studio bound. I could never get out. And so how do you get out of the studio? Well, there's most cameras, there's a number of things you have to worry about. And one's resolution, how big well, in my case, how long the line is for these digital images. The bit depth, those last 2 images were done with an industrial camera that only had 8 bits of depth. So your exposure has to be right on all the time, no messing around. And how fast you can go, how fast you can save it, which always ended up going onto these small SD cards. And power, how are you going to power it once you get out of the house? And so one of the very first pictures I took, this is in Montpellier, south of France, and just sitting there on the ground shooting this carousel as people walk by. But you always end up, people, what the hell is this person doing? And I spent about 4 or 5 months perfecting, getting the software better and better to try to make this interesting. You can see the front of this van here. Well, you see the front twice. You see its rear and the far, because it was moving at the same time. But the camera's actually on a little turntable moving around so you can get the background. Otherwise, the background would be look. And again, band-driven turntable, you can see that the ground is actually kind of wobbly because the rubber band is not catching up. Where this woman is walking towards me, everything else looks pretty normal because nothing else is moving. But this is just the fun. The lines going through is probably either dirt on the lens, dirt on the sensor. It's one of the problems. And out of this very first camera, what I was doing was taking 60,000 pixels long by 8 high, which 12-bit deep. And taking just one section out of these pieces, you get a reasonably looking, interesting image. And it's really a different kind of street photography, except for every time I've talked to street photographers, oh, this is not street photography, whatever. Pick your definition. And here you can see that I'm standing underneath the blades of a wind turbine, and those are 3 seconds apart. And as the camera is scanning, and you can see the wind turbines in the background, they look like they're melting because of the time involved in each one of the slices going on. And of course, back to shooting more people, just having fun. You go through a lot of people all the time. And then back into the studio with this same camera and full body morph suits. And this a really good series. It ended up going through and paying roughly 50 models over a period of 6-8 months. And this is just absolutely high on the bizarre side. It's been shown a number of places as exhibits. But what people all kept asking me was, what about color? Color's hard. And color's complex because in these little linear sensors, for color, there's actually 3 lines. And since those lines are separated by space, you have to correct post-process, move the plates over, and people move at different speeds. And you can correct one side of it, but the rest of it gets more and more smeared as it goes by. And this was an interesting failure, but there's ways to get around it. And what I'm currently working on and still working in, vertically challenged, actually we'll go through each one of these. So if you don't keep the slit horizontal, tilt it a bit, everything arrives at that slit at a different time. And so people get stretched out, and cars get mangled as they go by, which I find, I like the weirdness of it all. I find it. And this is actually one of my favorite pictures. This was taken at Versailles, where I was kicked out twice. Don't take a tripod to Versailles. So people are walking down the stairs, but the camera is rotating. So the camera is rotating about the axis of the lens. And you'll notice that this was a different model. I took it with me on a trip, but there's a lot of noise in the picture, all this horizontal or vertical lines. Just, except for that, I'd love to try to redo this in a different staircase. Oop, wrong direction. And of course, shooting roads and cars, there is no up when you start rotating the sensor around. And what about film? So after the last summer's festival, I started thinking about, and 2 things prompted me. I was given a bag full of film, okay, 25 years expired, and made me recall that I also had this 2 bulk loaders of 45-year-old expired film. And I figured, okay, well, I could build a slit scan film camera. I haven't touched film in 20 years, but we could do this. And yeah, it's both good and bad, easy, not easy. Still experimenting. I'm still working on it. And a couple of the issues with working with film is how do you calculate the exposure? Really, it's not fun. It's I'm dealing with a slit of 20 micrometers, and which is really approximate because I only have this little feeler gauge of 0.02 millimeters, and you're supposed to guess how fast the motor's going, which is different at different speeds. And because this take up and and the canister are different sizes at different points while you're running this, it's going to happen at a different speed. So I can kind of guess, and I just shot 2 rolls 2 days ago, and both horrendously overexposed, but that's okay. It's more, you're trying to guess a whole bunch of different factors, and I'm still playing with it to try to nail it down. At this point, I'll show a camera in just a few moments. The motor speed's approximate. The slits aren't exact, and there were both the mechanical and chemical issues, but it's just kind of keep playing and keep testing. But what I've been having more fun in the last 4 years now is slit scan for video. And I started with a GoPro and upgraded to a professional high-speed, high-resolution video. And the fun thing about this is you can pick where your slice is later. It's not immediate. With the slit digital ones, I can get the file out of the camera immediately, where with these, it's always post-processed, and it takes a half an hour to an hour to post-process a video, because the videos are massive, 3 gig for 3 minutes, and trying to figure out what you want afterwards. But it's been much more fun. Plus, you can take different lines or abstracts. So take a horizontal rather than a vertical, and that's a carousel at the bottom of this image, twirling around while people are walking through. And of course, taking these same long pictures and rotating them, doing that same transform, you get a number of other really strange, I mean, this is people walking by on the left, and this is an aerialist on the right of people swirling. It only sees movement, so you got to have people moving. And of course, this is a piece of Hurricane Erin last year. And this, sad I didn't have the right camera with me, but it was good enough to do a small, I think the actual image is 4 inches high, but about 1 meter long. Okay, I'm mixing units there. But if I can just actually switch to here. So this is going to be pretty delayed. So no doubt my voice is going to be off. But playing with video is not much different. And doing the same thing for the waves is about the same thing. So getting the wave action, this is slowed down, but you can see the wave action on the left. And if you copy each one of those lines going on, it creates a lovely picture of, whatever infinite length. And you can also go the other direction and not just worry about, again, this is horizontal rather than vertical lines. They've got a slightly lower resolution, and you're probably seeing it even lower on this Zoom call. And then there's one more, which doesn't work so well with that source, but it works better with this, which is more funhouse type stuff and what people are used to seeing. And again, you can do the transformation live. But this is getting a little bit away from photography. But it's also more a demonstration of how you can see what's actually going on. Because everything else is normal, except for that one slice, wherever it is. There it is. But how am I doing? Okay. And currently also working, recently picked up a 3D scanner, and I've got a LiDAR coming next month, dealing with 3D modeling and rendering and also some more stuff going on. And a few references. And it says my network connection is unstable, probably after that. Okay, so the fourth item on here is if you have a PC, this is the easiest way to look at video and try to get stills a video. Very good program. The rest, I strongly suggest people look up and try to find the two books. And of course, I am here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ralph. I was just copying the name of the books because I think we have to include them on our library of photography, of experimental photography. It was really good. Can you hear me, Ralph? Yes.
Yep.
Good. Yes, for sure we have to include those two books on our library. Can you explain us a little bit more? Because I remember one conversation about this. What we are seeing is space or time?
What you typically see is if it's a vertical line, you're seeing X by time. So things are being stretched out across, but you're looking at one dimension and things are being time as the other dimension. Or if it's vertical times the other dimension. I mean, it goes wherever your axis is. I think it's one of the absolute best ways of ever seeing time because you can see the distortion and each one of those moments. It's also going back to the history of photography, where you actually, any of the rotating panoramic cameras, including the wide lux, which I guess they're coming out with a new one, is just that slit, and it's going behind and getting it as slow as possible. What I've been finding really difficult is building the slits. Okay, this is one of the film cameras that just finished, and getting these essentially razor blades in behind the film, getting it the right place at the right width, and then trying to drive it with no shuttering is I'm good at electronics. Mechanical stuff is hard. And if you take okay, and this is actually the film camera which I've now taken apart and done again, or the digital stuff, which is this is a large format. You can actually see the slit, I think, in there. This is an 8,000 pixel version, which I finished this past winter to try to do more things. And of course, there's I got too many projects and not enough time.
Many things. Okay. Thank you so much, Ralph. Someone was asking for the cameras, but you also already show them. Someone was asking about David Hussey, the professor, but you also mentioned it in your presentation. And we were also talking with him a couple of years ago, and we did a conference for experimental. It was really good.
I traded emails with him last winter, and he's was actually wagging his finger at me, saying how it shouldn't be called slit scan photography because but I have to use something to cover everything because you can use the same camera for all these different things.
Sure. No, he's good. He's really nice. I mean, he's pretty old, but he's really open to have conversations with everyone. We are friends from Facebook, and we were talking a lot because he was raised in Argentina. It was a kind of weird thing, and we were making holidays on the same spot. I mean, he was kind of in the 60s and I was in the 90s, but I was happy with this personal connection with him. Yes, when he was a kid, his family was living in Argentina as immigrants. He speaks perfect Spanish.
But his website is what started me on this path 25 years ago, seeing it and understanding that you could just do this. And many of his papers still exist, still up there, although very emeriti, retired. But yes, absolutely great photos. And if you look around the slit scan world, a lot of it's referred back to David. And he first started in the 70s when he was doing it.
Good. We have another question. I think last one. I have been playing with the desktop scanner connected to a camera obscura. Have you tried it?
Uh, no, my desktop scanner is too big and bulky, and it's really, yeah, it's 25 years old now, so a little bit of a bother. I have been interested in taking well, it's not at hand. I was going to mask an old Polaroid camera and try to get an image out of that, as opposed to Obscura, but it should work. I mean, let's just keep experimenting. That's what there's always something more.
Great, good. This is an invitation for Jonathan to share his Instagram. He's also already sharing it on the comments. Okay, Ralph, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really amazing. Always happy to know more about you. And every time that we have a conversation, every time that I'm learning new amazing things, that's always good. Keep the light on. This is good. Keep growing, keep doing things. I don't know if we are going to meet each other this summer or not. You don't
I'll
think
be
so?
in Sheffield for a week and a half, but I don't think I'm going on to the continent.
Okay, no problem. It's good to take years off, and then we wait for you in 2027 for sure.
I've got ideas for workshops.
Good, good. Okay, great. Lynn, are you ready for explaining to our community what you have been doing over the last years?
Yes. So I am more of a traditional photographer that has, through the creative process, ended up using microscopy for a couple of book projects, actually, but this one in particular that I'd like to share with you. And I'll share the screen to go through the book, but my publisher is in the Netherlands. They're called the Ariske Connection, and they're amazing designers, book designers, and publishers. And we've worked together on all of my books. This one in particular, all of the images were made on the shore of Lewis, Delaware, and Cape Henlopen State Park, near where I live. And it features the horseshoe crab, which I'm not sure if everyone knows what a horseshoe crab is, but it's a very old species. We have a certain species on the east coast of the US. And I had been photographing light and water and constant change at the shoreline for years. And one day I looked up and saw this what I thought was a stick in the water, but it turned out to be a horseshoe crab swimming on its back, soaking up the sun, and I fell in love. And then that brought me on this whole journey, creative journey of wanting to know everything about it and photograph it night, day, spawnings, everywhere. So what I'd like to do is, if you don't mind, about 4 minutes of just you looking at the book itself from the beginning to the end, and then I can pick out certain images and talk about how they came into being. So I'm going to share my screen, see if I can find. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, full screen, perfect.
Okay. So I'll do a couple seconds per page. Oops. Oh, okay.
when you allow
That's it. So let's see. I hope you got a sense of the work. I know it's sort of a quick run through, but it's a real combination of science and art. And the creative process, I had been photographing, as I said, the light in the water, and then I saw the horseshoe crab, and I had to research when it would be spawning, what months, what times of the month, the new moon and the full moon, and where along the bay normally it would be spawning, because the timing of high tide and low tide is very important as well. So I had all of this research I had done on where in that place the horseshoe crab can be seen spawning and active. And usually it's the months of May and June during the new moon and the full moon, but also throughout those months. When I was photographing at night and seeing all of the eggs that that the female produces, it's just millions of eggs. Most of them don't get fertilized. They just get eaten by migratory birds. And the female and the male come ashore, and they dig. The female digs a little bit of a hole and makes a ball of sand and eggs, and the male's sperm fertilizes it, and then hopefully some survive to adulthood, and which is what we see here with these horseshoe crabs that are adult. Then I thought, why are these eggs different colors? Some are orange, some are green, some are yellowish or white. And the scientists I spoke with didn't really know. Maybe they've discovered why, but there are different theories about it, I suppose, but I could never figure that out. But I also wanted to see inside the egg and what the embryos actually looked like. And so let's see. So these are some of the images I pulled out from the book. These, I believe, are with, it's either a stereoscope or a compound microscope. If any scientists are in the audience, you can let me know. I kind of don't remember, actually. But I remember being able to control the light from the sides. So I think it was the compound microscope. And adjust the light. And I love light. I'm a photographer. So I thought, just aesthetically, wouldn't it be interesting to create light backgrounds and photograph this newly hatched horseshoe crab that was in the petri dish. And so that was actually a lot of fun. And I'm a person of photographers who's so used to being out in the place that I'm photographing, because that's part of my practice. I want to get out into the world and see and feel deeply where I am, and get back to a place again and again over long periods of time. So coming into a laboratory was really different, and photographing with a camera mounted, I'll show you a picture later, but the camera was mounted to the microscope, and then we had two computers, well, two screens, one computer that was attached to the microscope. And then I would put the, make the slides with the specimen and decide on the magnification, what I wanted to see and how, and then I could see on the screen, and I can just take the picture by clicking the mouse on the software program that's on that's visible there. So this is how this picture, all the pictures were made with this microscope. And you know, this one is alive, so he's pretty busy swimming around in the water. And it was, you know, I would wait to get a certain composition and then click. And then oftentimes I didn't use what I made because it didn't really work, but I liked this one especially. And then I was also photographing the night sky for this body of work. And when I saw this under the microscope, I was just reminded of floating in space. So I had this feeling of the embryo floating, and then I thought of the moon. And if you recall, the moon and the embryos are paired in this in the book for that reason, bringing the universal with the local and specific, and having this sense of wonder and wholeness at the same time on any level.
Sorry, Lynn.
Yes.
Lynn, we keep seeing your book. Is that correct?
Oh, no.
Okay. I think
You're
you have
not
to
seeing...
share. No, we're seeing the book.
Oh, shoot. Hold on. Let me
Page
stop
53.
share and let me reshare, okay?
Yes, please.
Sorry about that.
No problem. That happens a lot with Zoom.
Okay. Do you see this?
Yes. Do you want to start
Okay.
from the beginning, because we didn't see any of them? At least.
So you heard what I
fast.
said. This is the picture that I was referring to at the beginning.
Oh, good. Yes, you can just go fast through the first 6 or 7 or 10, because
Okay.
I mean, it was kind of related with the book, but it was not, and we were just thinking, okay, is this correct or not?
Sorry
And then
about that.
just...
Okay. So this is what I'm referring to. Now
Great.
I know how to stop share and then reshare. Okay. So this was the first image, and with the light and the composition. This is the second one that I felt a universe feel to it, and floating in space, along with this one as well. And I was just amazed at the fully formed embryo in here that looks a lot like the horseshoe crab after it's hatched, but it's still in the egg and it's about to hatch out. And this one, in addition to the color that I love in this, it was, was it ethanol? I forget what we used, but it had died, so we preserved it this way. And I love the color and the translucence of it in this image. And with the rest of the book, it actually, it flows well with the color throughout the book. And then again, we have these newly hatched ones that were swimming around, and just the level of detail in the eyes. So if you look, the dark spots on the let's call it the face, the head shield, are actually eyes. And the horseshoe crab has 10 eyes. 2 of them are compound on the right and left, and the ones in the front are used usually when they're very young, and it's to sense, I believe this is the UV light that it can sense with that. And the others are light sensors to help it right itself if it's upside down. And at night, when it's trying to spawn and find a mate, it uses the UV light emitted from moon and stars to guide itself to the shore to spawn. So, which brings me into actually the fluorescent microscope that I used, which was really interesting because it does pick up on the UV inside the horseshoe crab. They think that the horseshoe crab is related to the scorpion, and the scorpion has UV light that it emits when it is trying to find a mate. I think that's what I read. And so there might be some old vestige of using this UV light, of horseshoe crabs using it in the past. I don't think they use it anymore. But what I really found interesting, especially with these microscopes, is, you know, the eye is a lens, the camera is a lens, and then you have the microscope and then the camera on it. The selective focus in these microscopes is so sensitive that any slight change at turn of the knob, you get a completely different world. So I might see this and then slight turn and then see that, or see, I probably saw this. So going from that to that. And these are all the claws of the horseshoe crab in the middle that are highlighted. And these are also claws, horseshoe crab on its back with the claws revealed. So it takes a long time to take a picture with these microscopes because of the selective focus that can change quickly. If you accidentally hit it, it's really tough to go ahead and find what you were looking at before. You've got to scan the whole slide to find something interesting. It takes time. Again, you're looking at different layers, and then you're going from the surface, right and left and backwards and forwards on the surface to find something compositionally and then subject-wise that really works. So I don't have as many photographs of using the microscope, obviously, as I do using my I use a Sony mirrorless camera now. I think I was using a Canon 5D Mark III for this body of work. But again, even with the regular camera that I use when I'm out in the world by the seashore, I often will use selective focus. And that, especially with water, if I'm close up, and I get that same effect of being able to see underneath the water certain objects, and then having the rest blurred. So I really like this way of seeing that you can have a feeling of a layered effect and a sense of whole. So here is one of the embryos that's a different color. And I just really loved that discovery. And that's a lot of what I do, is just discovering things. So the whole connection between art and science remains in this body of work, especially. Again, here's another claw coming out. Actually, this is more like less of a claw and more of a pusher, they call it, where the horseshoe crab, when it moves, will push the sand underneath. Here's another look at the embryo. And this is another fluorescent image of a claw. Again, just playing around to see what I can see with these different kinds of scopes. And that's it for deep time. The next body of work that I'm doing does have some. Let me see if I can get it up here. I did end up in the lab again, but again, more as the work brought me there. I didn't intend to be in the lab again. Can you see this? Okay, so this body of work I'm doing now, which will become my next book, is sort of a follow-on to Deep Time. And it's looking at the shoreline and the night sky, but I've moved on from the horseshoe crab. It's sort of after Deep Time. And there are other images of jellyfish and water surfaced wind on water, strange circles and strange planetary feels to it. But I thought, I was talking to a young scientist who said, you can photograph diatoms, and diatoms produce, I believe it's up to 60% of the oxygen on Earth. And I thought, wow, I wonder what they look like. So I went in the water and got samples with a sieve and brought them back to the lab, set it up again. And this is an example of one type of diatom it's got these spindly things coming out of it because it remains on the surface. It helps it stay on the surface. Whereas if you see this one, this would be more on the bottom of the water. So I've just been playing with different samples and different scopes. Here's a diatom, a circular one, as well as spearheaded ones. This is another one, circular. And then I thought, in addition to that, what if I just photographed seaweed and came up with this? At probably 40 magnification, I'm not sure. And this, so this is more for its color and sort of graphic quality to it. This is sand. And this is brown seaweed. This is a beautiful shell that I found, these two. Are you seeing this, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. And here is a jellyfish. And this is all with the compound microscope. And here's the shell again. And just a few with the fluorescent microscope. I'm not sure what these are, but graphically it might be kind of an interesting. Oh, here's a diatom with that. And this is, not quite sure. I'm sure there's some diatoms in there, but you can't really see. It brings out more the fluorescent aspect of it. And here I am in the lab, having gotten samples from the bay. I'm cleaning them out by using a sieve. I think it's 5 layers, using water to then take out the heavier particles and ending up with diatoms in the end. And here's Dr. John Cohen, who gave me the artist residency and who set me up with the microscopes and let me do the work at the University of Delaware in Lewis, Delaware, that has a campus in the town of Lewis by the beach. And I think it's the College of Earth, Ocean, and Environment is the formal name. And here we are. So the setup, we've got the camera on top of the microscope attached. And then we have the computer attached to the microscope. And then we have 2 screens where I can move one, when I'm taking the picture, the software would be on the right and the image would be on the left. Yeah. So that's about it for this project. And the new work I'm doing, I didn't show you any of the photographs with the Sony camera because I wanted to focus. This seems to be more of an interest in the microscopic images. So I'm excited to put together the next book and to finish photographing. I will be trying to use a telescope at the, there's an observatory at the University of Maryland that has an open house, and I might be able to photograph through the microscope and see how that turns out. Yeah. So let me see.
Nice. Thank you so much, Lynn. There were people asking for the books. There any way that we can buy any of the books?
Okay.
Or all of them are sold out?
They are. Well, my recent Deep Time, unfortunately, is sold out. I do have a few copies at home that are available. If you want to send me a private message, I can certainly, make that happen. My most recent book is called The Nest, and if you go to the publisher's website, you can order a copy there. They have copies available, and that's work done across the street in the woods called Sligo Creek Park, and that was done over a 7-year period. There's no experimental photography in it; it's more traditional, but it's an artistic approach. And I do come from a family of artists and scientists, which wasn't my intention when I was photographing, but it just came together in these works. So I'm very happy to that has happened.
Nice. Everyone is looking for your book, but I don't know if it's out of stock. We are looking for.
It's out of stock everywhere except my studio here. So I have probably 8 copies available. If you'd like one, just contact me. And then the Eriska Connection, they don't have anymore. They've sold out. And so I'm happy to talk to whoever wants to purchase a copy.
Great. They can send you a message, an email, or a message on Instagram is good.
That's fine. Yeah.
Great. The Nest is not sold out in the Eric Stein connection. Yes, Eric Sky connection that they have just shared the link. Okay, that's good.
Great.
Fine was asking, very curious about how you took the close-up picture of the spawn underwater in situ. How you did them?
Do you know, I just I have a small Olympus Tough waterproof camera,
Okay.
and I'm using it actually for my current body of work a lot. But I look at the light and how it falls under the water. So I'm in a rather shallow area, and I try to estimate a composition, and I find some things that are interesting and photograph that way. Sometimes if the water is high, I actually am in the water off the floor and moving with the tide, trying to take pictures, which is kind of fun as well.
Looks pretty fun.
Yeah.
Someone was asking, Ralph was asking, have you tried focus stacking?
No, I'm not nearly as technically advanced as Ralph is with the work that he's doing. I do what no, I'd rather be out in the field, honestly. I know Ralph, you were saying you wanted to get out and do that, which is I totally understand that. So I use Lightroom and sometimes Photoshop to do a lot of my photo editing, and I don't do stacking.
Okay, good. Yes, then Ralph, in the next webinar, you have to teach us what is stacking. Because also Carrie was asking about the depth of field and the color and how to do it with photo stacking and all that. That might be another conversation for the future. But yes, there are so many interesting technical problems and solutions in this kind of projects. Okay, I don't know if there are any other questions for Lynn. Now is your moment. If any of the 166 people here they are interested, now is the time. If not, we can just make more questions in the end. Okay, Lynn, it was a pleasure to know more about your work. I know that this is not so much into experimental photography in the sense that we work it, but we were really interested on doing this microscope, how to work with them, and also this more close to nature photography also that is normally is not so common to mix science and nature photography. That was what was part of our interest in your work, and I hope we can sell those 8 books
well,
in the next couple of weeks.
I also wanted to say just that so when we were designing the book, Rob, the designer, came up with this idea of having an image of water silk screened on the cover, on the slipcase.
Oh, nice.
And the color of the book itself is more of a misty moon, you know? So the relationship between the moon and the tides, we really wanted that concept in the book design. And then the inclusion of text was also very important. So there's a lot of inspired scientific information, you know, when you find a new creature or a new subject and you think, oh my gosh, that's amazing that it has 10 eyes, or oh my gosh, the UV light. So there are certain pieces of information that I had been collecting and putting in the book. And then I had a colleague write an essay. And then there's a lot of, there's a wonderful poem by the poet Jane Hirschfield. So poetry is an inspiration for me as well as science and other things. So it's a real combination of different art forms. And the microscopy just seemed natural for what I was doing.
Good. Laura, we have to take notes on this. We have to get that book. We need one of those 8s.
Yes, please.
Thank you so
Sounds
much.
That's great.
Lynn, if there are more questions, you can send it there and then we will go back. Rob, are you ready for your 25 minutes?
I am. Shall I share? Has that come up?
Yes, now it works.
Great. I suppose the first thing I should say is that I never really thought of myself as a photographer solely. I mean, I really work as an artist across many media, many platforms, of which photography is one. But I think the thing that unites my work is a focus on plants, the living world, color, and audience. How do you reach an audience, really? We all need audiences, in a way. So, my interest in microscopy started when I was 10. My father gave me this beautiful Victorian microscope, and he thought it would encourage my interest in the natural world. And he was an engineer, so I think he liked all the kind of mechanical bits. And I was making slides of pollen when I was 10 years old. And I thought, well, I'll study biology, but I failed all my science subjects at school. And so my path as a career as an artist kind of seemed the best one to follow. At the end of the 90s, I'd kind of reached the end of a series of works, and I was looking around, and I was looking at my microscope, and I was thinking, no one's really using microscopy as a creative tool. So I wrote into Kew Gardens, Botanic Gardens in London, and to the different heads of section, and just saying, are you interested in working with an artist? And I just got one reply, and it was a magic bullet, really. And it was from Madeline Harley, who was a palynologist, which is a pollen specialist. So she invited me in. She showed me her work with these kind of amazing kind of structures of pollen. And she graciously said, well, I can show you how to use the electron microscope. I think she wanted to show exhibitions of her work, but actually, at that point, I don't think Kew or the science world realized there was a popular audience for images that are derived from a kind of scientific background. So we always discussed ourselves as kind of mutual Trojan horses, really. Oh, sorry. And at that point, this was pre-digital. This is kind of around 2000. And it was a kind of phosphor screen, quite tricky to work with. But you ended up with it was a 3x4 Polaroid negatives and a really kind of beautiful quality image. She would never have shown an image like that at that point because it's collapsed. They want to show the perfect specimen. This is on the right is one of her plates where she's showing section through and details of the surface. But I quite liked the structure of the form. It had a very vessel-like feel to it. And I showed these as black and white images to begin with. But then I thought, well, actually, color has always been kind of prominent within my work. And I thought if I can start to introduce color, then that can bring in a different kind of character. Pollen has been explored this is from 1682, one of the first people to look at pollen under a microscope, which he described as spermatic globulates, which is a great title. And it's malva, some of the largest pollen grains. So the one on the right is hand-colored, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, of mallow. And this is, interestingly, this is a split-screen confocal movie, if it's going to work, of a section going all the way through a single pollen grain. And that's magnified about 2,000 times. So it is a kind of spinning confocal microscope, which is, I'll run it again. It's like this kind of golden sun, really. So I was very lucky to have access to the electron microscope, and I started developing a whole series of images. And each plant, the pollen grains has a kind of very characteristic kind of form, each family. And I was introducing color. And when I showed these to scientific audiences, they'd say, "Oh, is this the real color?" So I'd say, "No, it's not the kind of color, because it's the color I've developed, added to it, if you like." And they say, "Oh, so it's false color." So I say, "No, it's not false color. False color is a term that the scientists use because that's reliant on a program which they have at that point little interaction with. I'm using Photoshop in multiple layers to work through to create plant portraits. And the color is based on the original plant, the flower, or some other characteristics. And also I use it to bring out its structure. And then finally, I'll use it to bring out what I believe to be its character, individual character. And these are all magnified between 1,500 to 2,000 times. Just phenomenal kind of form and structure. So this is how they're created. So this is a chromaria seed. Very fragile. I mean, you never find a perfect specimen. You know, these are very, very fragile and they get damaged. So prepare it. This is the electron microscope. So these things cost about £1 million or €1 million, $1 million. Doesn't make much difference really. It's over $1 million wherever you are. And it's a process whereby you coat the specimen in platinum or gold or carbon in some cases, and it's bombarded. It's put into a vacuum chamber, that tall pillar on the left, and it's bombarded with a beam of electrons which bounce off this metal surface to give an image which has phenomenal kind of definition. And what I was doing, this is only magnified about 30 times. As well as working with small things like pollen, I was quite keen to push big things as I could get in there, which meant in kind of multiple frames and then assembling. So stitching those together, cleaning up the ground, and in some cases where the spikes were broken, I would copy and paste and graft them on to end up, and also kind of play around with the tonal values to kind of really have a really kind of well-modeled form, and then introduce the color. And I'm working, why I want to get as close as I can and as high definition as I can is because I want to show these blown up. So this image is about 1 meter in diameter, and the resolution, the detail on that is kind of phenomenal, really. This is a flower. It's a spider orchid, which I'm actually speaking from Greece, where I have a studio and a house. And I was just looking at these this afternoon. So these are early spider orchids. So after pollen, I started looking at seeds. And what happens with seeds? Seeds are dispersed, and this is the seed pod as it dries, and it becomes a hard carapace. And then looking into there, you can see tiny, tiny seeds. And if you spread those out on the paper, it's like dust, really. I mean, it's really, they're the smallest seeds. That's what they look like. They're all, most kind of wild pollen seeds like this have this kind of segmented kind of structures. And this is using a light microscope where you can see the actual seed inside them. And these, many of the orchids are not strong enough to self-germinate. They require interaction with mycelium in the soil in order to kind of draw on what that can give them, which helps with the germination. So having worked on seeds, I was looking at all different kinds of seeds, their structures, dispersal mechanisms, whether they're wind-blown, insects. Some of them are carried on water. Many, many different kind of characteristics. And these are produced for a book, which I'll talk about, I'll show you towards the end, really. and just phenomenal kind of structures. It's kind of lace-like filigree kind of structures that you can find. And then this is an allium seed, and if you go close in, you can see these phenomenal kind of different surfaces from these kind of crinkle surfaces from a cactus seed. And every kind of every time you hit the kind of magnification button, you enter into a kind of another world, really. So this is an asphodel, again, which are just flowering outside. There are fields of these, very beautiful flower. And I was working towards an exhibition out here in Greece. And I wanted to kind of use this flower. In order to have a perfect specimen, if you like, if you dry the flower, it's going to all kind of wither and kind of collapse, really. So I took it back to the UK in a bottle of ouzo to kind of preserve it. And then it's critically point dried. So it's freeze dried, so it takes all the moisture out without losing any definition on the surface. And there are about 80 plus frames within that. And there's no kind of there are kind of stitching now. This is prior to kind of stitching kind of programs, but even so, stitching programs are not all perfect. And you can see there's quite a lot of differences of tonal values across there. So there's a hell of a lot of work to do to get it into this kind of final version. And then to introduce color back to the original. And this image is about 1.5 meters across. And it was done for a series of prints onto canvas for a project that was looking at 19th century botanical wall charts, which were used in classrooms, Victorian times. And I was doing some for a show in Pittsburgh at the museum, and they were showing their wall charts alongside my equivalent images. And I'll often show work when I exhibit in relation to things that from the past. This is, we all stand on the shoulders of the great, as it were. And just looking back, that kind of history of working with plants in different ways is pretty astounding, really. So this is from a book from 1568, Medica Senesi by Mattioli. It was a huge book, and 3,000 copies in 5 languages were produced across Europe. And I was lucky to get, well, I'm lucky, I could just afford 5 pages from a book which had been destroyed. And I used those as a basis for the exhibition. So this is a widow iris outside here in Greece. And I also draw. These are the drawings I do. The drawings using aniline dye mixed with ink. They're drawn very, very quickly. And I'm allowing the ink to dry a certain amount, and then I'll wash it off. And if it's dried, it'll stay. If not, it just reveals the paper staining underneath. And also I've kind of used cyanotype, which has become very popular now, really. And then if I'm looking at the flower, I've pulled back one of the petals. You can see the stamen in there. That's one of those stamens. And if you go in closer and closer still, you can see kind of one of those kind of individual pollen grains, a characteristic kind of network surface. So this is a different body of work. I was invited to be a biodiversity fellow at the Gulbenkian Science Institute in Lisbon, 2010. So this was the lab I was working in. I was hoping to work with confocal microscopy, but it was just very difficult to get enough access. You need a lot of time to play with these tools in order to feel confident. And I've never wanted to use someone else's images. I wanted to be in control and to meet the scientists as much as I could halfway, just to learn their language and to be able to communicate and justify what I do. So they said, well, no one's using this kind of very nice microscope down the corridor. It was a kind of, a compound light microscope, and I was looking at sections through the stems of wildflowers. So these were hand cut, just with a very ordinary razor blade, about 0.5 millimeter thick. And the plant tissue is transparent. So here, whereas before all the color is post-production, here it comes at the beginning of the process. So in order to see what's happening in the tissue, the biologist will stain it with a range of different histological stains. This is, of course, toluidine blue, and it's a fantastic stain. It gives very different qualities across many different varieties of plants. So you can see here, this is the epidermis on the outside has become purple, and just inside you can see all the chlorophyll, the chlorophyll cells inside the vacuoles, and then it's becoming blue. And then I'm taking multiple exposures. So I was taking exposures at different depths of field, because to cut a dead flat section 0.5 millimeter thick is not really possible. And I wanted to work at high magnification. And so I stacked them. I kind of cleaned them up, each stack, and then I kind of stitched them together. So this image is about 4 meters across. It's from this plant, which is a Allium neapolitanum, which is a Naples garlic. And the same stain in this other kind of wild orchid produced this result. And the plant is responding to the stain, the different proteins in the plant, giving these different kind of colors. And it just means you're able to see the different structures inside that plant, the different patterning, the different kinds of cells, the kind of circular and the kind of geometric and the lumpy, the different scales. And just one more, this is a sawfly orchid. And this is 5 meters across, this image. The dark purple patches, those are the vascular cells where the sugar and the water are transmitted between root and kind of flower. And just really, really, really beautiful kind of color patterning across the surface there. And just in this sense, you can just see some of the chlorophyll, very pale kind of green spots within that. So other forms of technology, this is a poppy seed head. So you've got 2 hand-colored seed SEM images either side. And this is it's a 3D volume X-ray render. And what that does, it allows me to kind of rotate it. So you can see through. There's just a few seeds. It was an old seed head I had. I can just see a few seeds inside there. But if I look at a different plant, this is a shoe fly, and looking through that, you can see all that arrangement of those seeds inside that fruit in the center, and just that very fine filigree texture of the sepals around it. And here the color, this is false color. So the program, you can define, you can give it a range of different colors. So this was something which seemed appropriate. But I needed to work on it a bit more. So I changed that center manually, referring back to the red fruit that it came from. The technology allows you to slice through. So here I've got an image where you can slice through that fruit inside, and you can see the different compartments of the seeds inside. There, again, there you can see actually the seeds as they're attached to the, I don't know what they're called now, the bits which hold the seeds in. So that's another form of microscopy. So this is one final one. This is the petrol filler cap from my car, and I park underneath a birch tree, and you can see in the window, when I went the window down, it was full of seeds. So I took an SEM image of one of those seeds, and this I can't remember, it was about 800 images within that, and that was stitched that was kind of automatic stitched and stacked. And what we did to this, we applied a little bit of technical kit, really, which is a color X-ray. And what that does is quite spectacular. So with that color X-ray, we can identify any particular element on the surface. So if I'm looking at the computer screen, you can see up there, all those different little boxes on the right-hand side. So each one is labeled a color for any particular element. So here, what's happening now is that the operator has an aesthetic choice to make. So if the operator wants iron red, they can make it red, or she can make it blue or yellow. And just to show that, you can see here, so the iron is blue, calcium red, the platinum, which is sprayed with, so it's a large green background, potassium K, aluminium. And if one of the, I'm reliant on people's generosity to get, I cannot afford, it costs $800 a day just to kind of, to rent one of these. So I'm beholden upon them to let me in. And actually the person, I'd already met one of the people from their lab, and she said, we've got this new piece of kit, would you like to kind of play with it? And so what that enables them to do, I produced a body of work for an exhibition. We produced a scientific paper together, and the company, Oxford Instruments, were able to use that on their website. Something very different to the kind of normal things they would use to show off their technology. So it's a kind of sensational piece of kit, really. And it's used a lot for minerals, metals, and not so much for plants. So they were quite keen to be able to show what it can do with plant material. This is in Germany. This is the Max Planck Institute. This is Ulla Neumann. The Max Planck Institute, it's an Institute for Plant Breeding Research in Cologne, and they work mainly with barley crops, looking at when crops fail, all the different aspects of viability of crops. So that's one grain of pollen on the surface of the anther. And we did many things. And one of the images that came out of it, which I really liked, was this kind of, it's the whole floret from a barley grain. And you can see the kind of the anthers and these capsules with the pollen grains falling out. It's also like a bit like a Wagnerian character. It's kind of quite mad, really. So I used that for a project we did together. And then one of the scientists said, actually, can we use it in one of the scientific papers we're doing? So it was proposed, and it got on the front cover of Cell Biology, and their paper was accepted. So getting onto the front cover of a scientific journal for them is the same as for us getting on the front cover of photography magazines, art magazines. It actually is really important for their career. And once they found out that I could do that, then they were keen to do more. So they were sending me these images, which I reconstructed and recolored for another kind of cover of Nature. And going way back to working with Madeline Harley, I was very lucky to get a 3-year fellowship to kind of work with her. And one of the things my manager of the project used to meet him once every 3 months, and he said, "Oh, Rob, I'll give you 3 months to get a book deal together." So I always made artist books anyway. So I mocked something up. We went cold calling around the London Book Fair. We showed it to all the kind of different big publishers, and they said, "Wow, these are amazing, but where do you put it in the bookshop? Who's going to buy this?" And they all turned it down. And we found one small publisher, Papadakis, and they'd published books on architecture and design, and they had a good eye. And the director was sort of retiring, and his daughter was taking over. And he said, "Okay, well, we'll do a book. It won't be very big, and you won't sell very many copies." But as we worked on it, it being 260 pages. It was a full scientific text with all my images throughout. And we did on pollen. And then seed morphologists said, hey, can we do a book on seeds? And then we did one on fruit. And these are now in 10 languages, some in Spanish. And the seed book, which is 20 years old, we just did over a year ago. So there's a brand new edition of this with all new material in. And what that has enabled me to do is to create an audience around the world, which I would never have been able to do. And I think we sold about 160,000 copies of these books, which is kind of pretty phenomenal, really. And it also, it means that I'm taken seriously by the science world. And in some ways, the science world has been more welcoming than the art world. The art world doesn't always quite know where to put this work, and can't always distinguish the difference between what I do and what the scientists do. But in the end, I come to think, well, that's their problem, not mine. But I couldn't do it without all these people and that support. These are just a few of the different projects I've done. And I'm just working for a big show in Athens in the museum next year, and one in the Botanic Garden in Italy, I think, the year after that. So that's my talk.
Nice, really good. Thanks, Rob. Hope we can find those exhibitions soon, closer to where we are. About the books, can we buy them? Do you know the publisher, or we can just look on internet in general? Many people is asking for them.
Yeah, the Spanish copy, I did check on Spanish Amazon. Well, I try not to use Amazon, but there are copies of the Spanish one still available. The new seed book is only at the moment in English. I think they're in discussion, but that is available. And there are some kind of more compact copies of the pollen book which are available. So yeah, look online. There were German editions, Chinese, Japanese. So hunt around for whatever your preferred language is.
I mean, if you just want to see the images, you can buy the Chinese version and you can see exactly the same images.
Yeah.
Kerry was asking, could you restate why the microscope or capture device in this case is not able to render color? And also my question is how you recreate the color.
Okay. I mean, obviously I've been doing this for over 25 years now. So when I first started, the addition of color within the microscopic domain was very, very limited and very, very crude. And the scientists were only able to use it within the conventions that science dictated, and it had to be reversible. Obviously, it's developed a lot since then, and so there's a lot of sophistication of color. So there are many amazing kind of science photographers, really, that have caught up. I mean, I think the specimen, the way with a scanning electron microscope, you have to coat the specimen in platinum in the first place. I think you can use uncoated now, but you're still going to end up pretty much with a black and white image, which the program that then kind of turns into a color image in different forms. I didn't show it actually, but when I worked with a scientist at Oxford Instruments, we both did our own version of one specimen, and how mine was quite different to hers. Mine was much more sophisticated. Hers was quite brash in a way. So I'm using. So when I start off, I'm working with a black and white image, which I'll then turn into a duotone. So I'll introduce a bit of color, then I'll make an RGB file, and I'll kind of make stacks of different tones, and I'll erase, work backwards and forwards through that until I kind of build up and model, almost lighting in a sense. But that's why I call them plant portraits. I mean, I used to do, back in the 80s, I was doing these very, very large 2-meter drawings of plant-derived drawings using kind of pastel, very kind of intense kind of layered of pastel. And in a sense, it's kind of very similar to that. It's the same sensibility using a graphic pen and a tablet to when I'm using a watercolor brush or chalk in my hand, really. It's that kind of sensibility.
And then someone was asking about the 3D modeling that you show us in black and white, that it was not possible to see inside, but you were able to make the model and then it was moving. and then you color it. How you work with this? There is a specific scanner, or is a specific technology or program that you can use?
Yeah, it's good volume. I mean, there is a kind of little chapter in the new edition of the Seed book about that, and it's a 3D X-ray volume render. I was I'd met someone from University College London. That's his specialism. He's working on those, and they use it a lot for minerals, but they use it also for archaeology. So you can look inside a rock and see what fossil lies within inside it. And so it's X-rays through, and then you can end up with a kind of fully rotatable visual render on screen, and you can move through it and take one slice out. And really, probably you can take that through to a 3D manufactured model, should you wish, when I've not done that. But that's also kind of happening more and more, I think.
But all of this needs a lot of technology, as you said, a lot of research, a lot of technicians, people specialize on this. Someone was asking, what would you be your advice, someone that wants to start working with this microscopy, what they have to do and how they can get access also to this equipment, or what will be the easiest way to start?
Well, increasingly there are more courses, MA, art and science-based courses. So I'm sort of retired now, emeritus professor at Central St. Martin's, which is part of the University of the Arts in London. So we have an MA Biodesign, MA Regenerative Design, MA Material Futures. All of those kind of build on those technologies. So we now have a biolab, grow lab within the art college. And that's really important, because as a culture, it's just all art and design otherwise. To know what is possible outside is difficult. I was just really, really lucky that I kind of wrote in. I would always say, if you've got an idea, knock on a door, just Google, actually. And then universities are good, but it's good if you're a student. People are more generous to students because they don't expect you to know what you know. And I think you have to be lucky to hit the right kind of person. There are those scientists who are kind of head down, really, you can't understand a thing they're going to tell you. But see what's on, look online, look at who's doing kind of work within that art and science microscopy. And there are, across, in different countries, across Europe, and across North America, I know for sure there is a growing kind of a growing market for it. It's changed a lot. So I think depends how it fits with your own work. I think what Lynn said about discovering this kind of crab on the beach. Then you have a need. There's a question, and then where do I find? How do I? What is this like? How do I photograph an egg? What do I, And so you have to go through this process. You have to be prepared to learn a lot, and so it's quite a steep curve. But people are usually pretty generous. I've been very kind of lucky with that. I mean, the director of the Science Institute in Lisbon, he said, I had 5 months. He said, work with whoever you want, go with wherever you want, do whatever you want. And that's the kind of invitation, which is perfect, really.
Sure. I have a last question for the three artists of today, tonight, this morning, depending on where you are in the globe. Rob, where do you think you are going to be in 1 year?
In 1 year? Okay, so I'm working towards this exhibition in Athens in June for next year. So I'll be showing some of these images, but I want to look at soil chromatography. I want to look at different aspects. So I want to be able to show the raw material, the actual seeds I collect. I've got one project which I didn't show. I sometimes these images end up on other substrates. So I do a whole series of sections through plants which I've printed onto silk. So I want to do a series of kind of banners which are pollen images which I've collected off the filter from my car, so you can see the fibers. So it's an airborne pollutant, or particularly if you suffer from hay fever. But I want to create a series of these kind of flags, if you like, going through. So they kind of wave. I suppose what I always try to do is create a visual impact that draws you in. Yeah, so that's my next big project.
Okay, and then if we want to see your images next summer in Greece.
Yeah, Heraclion Museum.
Good. Lynn, where do you see yourself in a year? Amazing projects, something coming? We are not listening to you. You have to turn on your audio now.
I hope to have my next book published next spring. And in the meantime, I'll be finishing some of the night sky photography and then editing and sequencing and printing and taking a long time to look at the images and see what I have. Yeah.
The next book will be about?
As I said before, it's sort of after Deep Time. The tentative title is Estuaries and Stars, but that I don't feel like that's the right title. And so as I'm working on the editing and sequencing, I think the title will come, and also maybe reading more science. But it's photographing light and water and wind on the shore at low tide and impressions in the sand. And then underwater, which seems to be seaweed and jellyfish and the night sky with clouds and stars in the sky, and then reflections of water with clouds. So there's this holistic sense to the body of work, but it's definitely some of the images are just very strange. So we feel like we're on a new planet trying to explore again.
Okay, we need to wait a year for that amazing new world to come out.
It depends on the publisher's schedule too. So, yeah.
Okay, hope they work fast and we can have that book because it looks really good.
Yeah.
And also, biggest part of your books are already sold out. That means that the market is asking for things, They have to work hard on that.
Yeah.
Ralph, in 1 year?
More cameras, a lot more learning. Hopefully I'll be right here. I have so many projects underway. I have to finish something. It's just kind of at this point, you've got to finish something. It's kind of too many things going on. But no, everything is going fine.
Good. Okay.
Could I just say something? I think
Sure.
there's one thing which kind of goes across all three of us, and that is that there's a very strong kind of narrative within the work. And I think that's really interesting, where you can put something together, whether it's in a book form or whether it's in an exhibition, whereby the images are individually kind of really powerful and can stand on their own, but together they can form a kind of another kind of more powerful kind of narrative, which engages audiences, which is always something that.
Also, I just wanted to say that following with Rob is a lot of some of the microscopic images that I'm doing now, I don't see them fitting with the book work that I'm doing, this longer narrative. So what I'd like to do is just make handmade artist books with the images that don't quite fit, and just see if I can make something that is really creative and different with those images that don't work with it.
Good. Okay.
I have to follow up that both of Lynn and Rob doing microscopy. I've had microscopes for a number of years, and I have yet to actually spend a lot of time with them. And even this past winter, I've found a wee macro setup, and it's kind of okay. Real soon now, just more projects.
More and more projects, and then we need to see your book, Ralph, with all your projects.
Yes, actually, I've got 2 started.
Okay, you have to finish one. Okay, this is a 5 years project. Don't get stressed. Just finish one and then sold out, and then the next one. Okay, thanks everyone for being here. It's been a pleasure also to know all your work. It was really, really amazing as always to know more about your work, and also know you personally, have a little words on it's not the same to see the book than really to have the artist talking about it, and that is gold for our community. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks to all the participants also to be here. You know that you can follow us on Agora or Experimental Photo Festival in summer in Barcelona. Okay? Thank you so much. Have fun and see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.